good morning to the members of the media. Pleasant good morning. Before I go into the statements related indeed to the sanitary landfill about the fire, I care to address, of course, the ongoing situation with a missing school child, Nathan York, attending school, Martin Luther King School, Group 8, which has, of course, my urgent attention. And I am currently in contact with the parents, the school management, and also the Inspectorate of Education to ensure that we give all attention to, this urgent situation, to find a child. Immediately, therefore, after my report, I have to excuse myself so that I can further assist, because finding Nathan is, of course, the first priority for us all. And I will not take that indeed lightly. In regards to the fire at the landfill, dump 1, dump 2, how we have been referring to it, and its effects on the schools, I was initially informed Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and as the members of the press, of course, know, the first priorities and decisions were taken to focus on the school, the pavilion school of the Charlotte Brookson Academy, on the Pondville, as that, according to indeed information received from the fire department, would have been indeed the school heavily affected by the risks associated to health and the smoke. That decision was therefore taken, and CBA school was closed, and students were requested to remain home, and parents were requested to ensure that their children are safe. Due to the developments in the course of Monday morning, and after visiting a variety of schools, such as Oranje School, the Inspectorate also visited Sister Borgia School, Sister Joseph, and also the school, the Sundial School. We indeed even further expanded the visits to Asha Stevens and Learning Unlimited. We concluded that more schools needed to be closed because children were experiencing various respiratory symptoms, matters related to headache, coughing, teachers as well. So we indeed decided to expand the initial decision of closure to the schools immediately affected in Phillipsburg, including Oranje School, Sister Borgia, St. Joseph School, and also Sundial, and also even as far as Marie Genevieve de Weaver School, early childhood stimulation, that experienced problems due to the close proximity of their classrooms. We decided to expand and continue with the unfortunate closure of the schools, which we of course understand is disrupting, but it is about safety of the students first, and therefore continued with the closure of the same schools on Tuesday. Everybody, of course, was alarmed with the further expansion now of the fire on the sanitary landfill to the level that we, of course, all have experienced and are closely involved with. Based on the information received and indeed the further expectations of the direction of the wind, the impact of the smoke, we therefore decided to further include more schools and also advised and urged the closure of Asha Stevens School in Cahill and also NIPA and Learning Unlimited to ensure that students are protected. I would like to care to urge, of course, parents to also ensure throughout the day that the children are attended, safeguarded, so that they're not left alone because of these unforeseen circumstances. We also want to, of course, urge and have been informed that we should also emphasize the importance of the daycare centers, maybe a little bit on the outskirt of our responsibility. I'm sure that my colleague may address them further as well. But daycare centers, of course, in a direct facility also made their measures and their decisions themselves, and also informed parents that it would have been better to have the children indeed at home. So I know that that is on the discretion of the daycare centers, as it is more a private initiative, but we care for all children regardless their age, and therefore indeed are happy to see that daycare centers also have been proactive. We have been encouraged that school managers and especially the school managers, but also the inspectorate, have been proactive in the sense to monitor children that may have experienced respiratory problems, to already, of course, prioritize those groups and keep them at home. And I'm sure that we are going to continue the monitoring and the updates related to to the extent that we are able to contain the impact of this fire. So I'm really urging media, parents, teachers, school boards to continue to monitor the progress and further information relayed via the media to see whether we should extend the closure of the schools further, whether other schools may be affected, and whether we therefore indeed have to continue with this measure in the days to come. Of course, I care to apologize that I have to leave prematurely and I'm not able to indeed address the questions that you, the media, may have. Please rest assured that my press officer, Giselle York, is at your availability for further questions that you may have, but also to address further updates that we will share with you in the course of the day. As I mentioned, I care to apologize, Madam Prime Minister, as it is indeed related to matters of addressing this urgency related to the missing child. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be ahead of time. I know that other ministers have further updates, of course, relevant to this serious matter. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Minister Whiter, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite Minister of Justice, Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, the Honorable Cornelius de Wever, to address you. Minister, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Ms. Gums. Good morning, St. Martin, fellow Prime Minister and colleague ministers. I've been in contact as well all evening, as well as this morning, with the Port of St. Martin, informing them of the current situation at our landfill. They were asked to inform the cruise lines to seek alternative ports and or to use their discretion. I'm kindly asking all citizens to refrain from posting negative images of St. Martin. I understand this is the political season, but we have to look at the bigger picture, which is St. Martin as a tourist destination. We have been trying our best to improve the image of St. Martin since the passing of Hurricane Irma, and I appeal to you to stay positive and friendly. Post and share positive images of St. Martin because tourism is all of our business, and we can all contribute to improving our product. I'd like to also inform you that the TELEM and UTS offices are closed, as well as the Immigration and the Staff Bureau of the Ministry of Justice will be closing at 11. I want to thank Mr. Carl John and the police force for securing the perimeters and working day and night to assist us in many ways. Those are my comments for today, and I thank you, Ms. Gums.
For your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite Minister of Finance, the Honorable Michael Ferrier, to address you.
Good morning. I really do not have a whole lot to tell you because this dump issue is an ongoing project, and my colleague here next to me is got a very good handle on what's going on and how he's going to tackle it. All I can tell you is that I endorse the words of our Minister of Justice that we need to make sure that while we stay informed, that we do not spread rumors. Rumors cause problems. Rumors cause panic, and rumors cause stress. So please, if you're not sure of a situation, do not spread it as if it's gospel. Let's stay on track. Let's all help get St. Martin back on track. Let's all help do the right thing for St. Martin. Tourism is indeed everyone's business, and this is important. From the point of finance, I can only say that we are doing all we can to get as much of the financing that is needed for all the projects, including the project of the dump situation, to a positive close as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Ferrier, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, the Honorable Mikolos Peterson, to address you. Minister.
Good morning, Prime Minister, fellow ministers, press, and audience members viewing and listening. Today I face you with a heavy heart, heavy with sadness as our country deals with toxic fumes soaring over our island. Our country is suffering, and my heart goes out to every single person affected by this toxic smoke in town, reaching as far as Cole Bay, Simpson Bay, and the Friendside. This one hit us all hard. Schools have closed, businesses have closed, families have been evacuated, and garbage cannot be picked up. I humbly ask you for your continued patience as we urgently resolve this situation. In the days after Hurricane Irma and Maria, a temporary dump site was created behind the Little League Stadium by the former government. The purpose of this new dump site was apparently to collect debris caused by the hurricanes in one central location. This new dump site was to be temporary and secure. Dumping chemicals and household garbage at this site is prohibited. Last Sunday afternoon, this temporary dump site caught fire, and after 2 days of brave efforts to stop this fire, the main landfill itself caught fire as well last night. I want to thank the emergency services of the police force, the fire department from Dutch and Friendside, and my VROMI staff for their hard work. I said it before, and I will say it again. This dump is a monster that needs to be stopped. It is strongly believed that these two fires were man-made. We contacted the prosecutor's office to launch an investigation into these two cases this morning. Government is responsible for the well-being of the people, and there is no question about that. But government can no longer be solely held accountable for putting the citizens' lives in danger if these fires are being caused by arsonists. Reaching a short or long-term solution for the landfill is not an easy problem to deal with because of politics. Our highest priority is to reach a permanent solution rather than coming up with new options for the dump. I believe once we take the politics out of this, we will reach a solution sooner than later. The politics and blame game amongst ourselves have to stop for the better of the people of this country, St. Martin. VROMI is still working on a solution for this problem, and as soon as all parties involved can come to an agreement, this problem would be solved and communicated to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Peterson, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, the Honorable Emil Lee, to address you. Minister.
Thank you very much. Greetings to fellow ministers, media, and those listening by television or radio or by internet. First of all, yes, the fire at the dump. I'd like to thank the staff of the Ministry of VSA. Again, they have been performing above and beyond the call of duty. We've made sure that all persons at the Little League Park and at Carnival Village have been evacuated. This was already earlier in the week. There were some individuals who really did not want to move and refused to move. But as of yesterday, with constant encouragement and work with the staff, we believe that as of now, all of the people there have been evacuated. Also, a special thanks to first responders. I know when Council of Ministers, we were very active last night, inspecting the scenes firsthand. You could see it in the face, especially of the firefighters. You know, they've been working round the clock, and clearly they're exhausted. And I think a special thanks to the first responders for all of their efforts as well. And that goes as well to ambulance, medical staff, and police personnel. I'm very concerned about the impact of the fire. Obviously, the smoke has both short-term and long-term consequences. The ministry has put out a number of information pieces informing the public in terms of what type of masks would work. Not all types, not, some dust masks, for example, aren't adequate. You need to look at the specifications in terms of determining what actually will help to protect you. The obvious first thing to do is to avoid the smoke. So if you're living in an area that is prone to smoke infestation, try and move to other locations, family and friends, keep your windows closed. Obviously, just try to avoid the smoke as much as possible. While the responsibility for the management of the dump falls under the responsibility of VROMI, it is always the Ministry of VSA that gets the impact questions. Obviously, the health of the population is our primary concern. We did check with the hospital yesterday. They had reported that the patients that were there were fine and that they didn't report any increase in patients coming in for respiratory-related issues. Changing my hat a little bit, as a member of Council of Ministers, this is an issue that has concerned me for quite some time. And actually, by law, I am obligated to respect the confidentiality of what happens in our discussions in Council of Ministers. And I am asking the Council of Ministers and our Prime Minister in particular to lift that, because I feel that there's many things that I would like to say that I'm bound by law not to speak about. First of all, I think there's some things that the public should understand. I notice in documentation sometimes we refer to this as a landfill, and in other times we refer to it as a dump. What we have is a dump. We do not have a landfill. A landfill means that the leachate, in other words, the liquids that pass through the landfill, are prevented from moving to other locations. So in other words, there should be a liner in place, there should be some sort of a collection and treatment process for it. Hazardous gases also should be collected and vented. Both of these, to my knowledge, do not happen. And also, most importantly, in a landfill, the material is properly covered. The materials should have a layer of dirt or sand that will prevent rodents, other vectors, and as well, it starves the materials from oxygen, which is what is necessary for fires to burn. There are a number of advices. The SARE has written an advice. That advice is online for all the public to read. The SOAB has written a report about the terms of reference for the management of the dump. That report is something that I believe the public has a right to see and understand what is the contents of it. The Ministry of VSA has also drafted a report about the impacts of the waste management system, or lack of, in St. Martin. I have serious concerns about the way the dump is managed. If you remember that previously the price for management of the dump was substantially higher, and you have to wonder if the cheaper price wasn't done at the expense of quality. There were offers that were made in the past. There are water pumps stationed close to the dump where they would be able to pump water from the salt pond onto the dump. Those pumps are non-functional. Offers have been made in the past to make them functional. They are to this date still not functional. A company, Watkin Trading, has offered a firefighting product from a company called Ansell. It's called Silverex. This was offered numbers of times to the government, initially for a cost price, eventually even for free. All offers were rejected. Only yesterday, when I contacted the Prime Minister and I said, look, there is an offer that has been made in the past, and I believe that offer still stands. And sure enough, the product was delivered to the fire department. Unfortunately, they only had 9 pails of the product available because the rest of it was stolen after looting. And as I understand, and I think the Prime Minister can elaborate, but out of the 5 fire trucks that are available or there, only 2 are functional. And it leads a question for the public and for the journalists to investigate. As you look at previous budgets and capital investment budgets, were there requests for new fire equipment? So again, I have many questions. I'm frustrated. I'm angry, as is the rest of the population. This is outrageous. The costs to the population, both in terms of material costs and intangible costs, the health of our population, are unacceptable. You know, there are solutions, and I realize we're going a little on a tangent here. We are not the only country in the world that has a problem with how to manage solid waste. I forwarded to both the minister previously and to this minister as well videos, for example, from Singapore, where I think they have an excellent solid waste management system. This is not rocket science. There are solutions all around the world. We simply need to evaluate and figure out which solution fits St. Martin best. And ultimately, it does not come down to figuring out which company or what solution. It is the process. That is why this never finishes, because every time it goes through some clouded, non-transparent, not accountable process. And that's why every time there's a change of government, the process restarts. I'd like to make a recommendation also to Council of Ministers and to the public as well. I think you would need to insist on a public setting, on a setting where there's a committee that has multiple stakeholders in place that manage the process of developing a solid waste management program. Make it transparent, put the Nature Foundation, put stakeholders in there. Make it a process that even if the government changes, that process doesn't stop. On a lighter note, two other topics. Jobopportunity.sx. This is a website that has been developed by the Ministry of VSA. The idea is to register employers, to have them complete their profiles online, as well as to have employees put their profiles online. The Cabinet has been working diligently on this, and I'd like to give a special thanks to Marvio Cooks. He's been doing a terrific job with this. And we've been working closely, obviously, within the ministry with other departments. The department is hosting weekly registration sessions for employers to start with, to make sure that they register their businesses properly. And every Thursday in the month of February, starting Thursday, February 15th, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the new government building, there will be sessions for businesses to come in for assistance on how to register. We'll start advertising in the newspaper as well, and also employees, people who are looking for employment should register on the website as well. Just yesterday, for example, I had a gentleman when I was walking down Front Street saying that he actually has 20 vacancies he's looking for people to fill. This, in today's age, we should be able to fill these within a couple of weeks, and so I'm going to challenge the ministry, to the department, and to the website developers. Let's fill these 20 jobs as quickly as possible. Last note, again on a positive topic. A couple of weeks ago in press, we talked about how the ministry was struggling with a lack of vehicles, and how the ministry, since Irma, I've been working very hard to make sure that we have the resources necessary for the staff to operate properly. In response to that, a gentleman contacted actually MP Perry Hearlings and said that he would be interested in donating 3 vehicles to government. The MP passed the contact information on to me. I spoke to the gentleman, a little bit skeptical at first. In today's age, I'm used to everybody calling and looking for something from government. In today's age, it's very special to have people donating things. And sure enough, the gentleman who wishes to remain anonymous donated 3 vehicles, brand new vehicles. And I thought about it, and I said, look, government, we are already working on replacing the vehicles necessary for the Ministry of VSA. And so within the Cabinet, we had a deliberation about how best to use these vehicles. And ultimately, what we concluded was we'd like to support the Mental Health Foundation. In contacting the Mental Health Foundation, turns out that they were leasing a number of vehicles, 3 to be exact. So we contacted the dealer, Motor World, asked them if they would consider terminating those leases and allowing us to purchase the vehicles to replace them. They've agreed. Those vehicles are already in the possessions of Mental Health. I'm very happy to report that the savings on their lease payments will translate to almost $29,000 a year, which will go straight into their operational savings, meaning that they have more money to spend on other things. To the donor, to the benefactor, a heartfelt thank you. Your generosity is amazing, and I hope it serves as a model for others in the community to help the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Lee, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite Prime Minister the Honorable Leona Romeo Marlin to address you. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mrs. Gums. A pleasant good morning to you, citizens of St. Martin, press and invited guests. This is an update on the both fires at the designated areas. I will refuse to say landfill now since the Minister of VSR just corrected us on what exactly is a landfill. The fire at the emergency area is currently contained. So that's the first, not lack of a better word, what we will call it. Not landfill, but designated area for dump. We'll use the word dump, okay. Don't like the word, but okay, the dump. That has been contained. Assistance has been granted by the Prefet of St. Martin to allow French St. Martin firefighters to assist in cooling down certain hot spots in that specific area. And this is used to avoid possible flaring up of the fire again. In essence, the fire has been contained and the fire department continues to monitor the situation there. As it relates to the second fire in the area designated for household garbage, the situation is as follows. About half of the fire front area has been contained and covered with sand to prevent further spreading to areas. An additional strategy of cutting trenches was implemented, which helps to isolate the fire in manageable areas. As of this morning, the fire department has replenished their materials and resources, and additional excavators have been activated to tackle the fire. As the extinguishing of the fire continues, the smoke remains a concern for the community's indirect passage of the smoke. Persons are being advised not to stay in the smoke area for an extended period. Through this medium, I would like to once more thank the Préfet and French St. Martin Fire Department, St. Martin Airport Department, the Government Fire Department, the Ministry of Romy, the security guards at the government administration buildings, the landfill contractor, and persons who have in one way or another contributed to the quick response and extinguishment of both fires. Further updates will be given throughout the day. I would like to note or let my council know that we must remember, in times of chaos and crisis, we shall know our strength. Let us continue to stay focused during these challenging times, and especially during the recovery process. I thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Leona Romeo Marlin, for your opening remarks. At this time, we'll go over to the question and answer session. Members of the media, the floor is now open for questions.
Government of St. Martin.
I think there is an opportunity here. The bad news is we have a fire on the dump. The good news, all the people that may have an influence on how our recovery funds are going to be used are on island. And they are witnessing what's going on. So I think this is a almost perfect chance to make a good case for one of the priorities in our recovery. As it stands right now, of course, in our budget, there is no space to do big projects like this, because this is millions and millions and millions of dollars that's going to cost. But I personally feel that there's a good possibility that we can make a firm case for funds to help St. Martin once and for all out of this problem.
Thank you, Stephen, for that question. Alita, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcia. Good morning, Prime Minister, Ministers of the Council. My, of course, question has to do with the the dump. And dovetailing off of what Minister Michael Ferrier just said about getting finances to create any large project. What we heard today are things that I'm sure all of us, you, the public, myself, already know. It's obvious that the fires have somehow been started by someone. It didn't happen by itself. And it's obvious that the dump is a problem. What we're not hearing is what exactly is the solution. So say tomorrow the Dutch government says out of the 550 million, here is 200 million to go fix the problem. What are you fixing? What is the actual solution to the problem we're facing now? And I think that's what the public is listening to hear. How are we fixing it? Not that we have to or we will, but how? What method would be used? So Minister of Romy or Minister of Finance or even the Prime Minister, I think that is the pressing question at the moment.
Let me start by saying the solution to the problem is to come to an agreement with all parties involved that they are satisfied with, for instance, the PPA, the Power Purchase Agreement. All parties involved need to come to an agreement, and because of, like I said, the politics involved with the waste management or to come to a ideal waste solution, that agreement cannot be achieved, quite frankly.
That
Thank
would
you,
lead me
Aditya.
to, if I may, follow up on the question my colleague just asked. What kind of a collaboration is there? And I need an answer from the Minister of Romy and that of VSA. What kind of a collaboration is there between the Ministry of Romy and the Ministry of VSA in tackling the situation at the dump jointly?
Jointly, we are focused on the well-being of the health of our citizens. So together we are trying to find a solution to get all the people who live in the immediate vicinity of the dump to a safer location and out of the smoke.
Look, the physical management of the dump is the responsibility of Romy, while the Ministry of VSA has the health responsibilities. So one of the things that the ministry has been working on, and this is from a health perspective overall, this applies to, I know many people complain about septic water in the neighborhoods, right? So again, this is something that has a health consequence, but is a Romy issue. So VSA has drafted and putting together a set of criteria for Romy to use, for example, that they should incorporate in their terms of reference when they have a contract for management of the dump. In other words, that the contractor needs to maintain that the materials are properly covered, that the air quality as a result of the dump fits certain parameters. So VSA is going to give health parameters to the Ministry of Romy and hope that they would take those in their documentation and their processes to ensure that whatever goes forward has better health impact for the neighborhood, for the community. And I'd like to touch a little bit on Alita's question. I think I mentioned it. You know, look, I'm very proud about the way the hospital project has gone. If for some reason we cannot finish the hospital, I believe that the progress that has been made is secured because of the way the process went. I think that same process has to be applied to the waste management project. The ingredients are simple. Everyone around the world knows, you know, reuse, recycle, repurpose the materials. I would certainly look at putting some sort of a fee on plastics, glass, things that come into the island, and start some sort of a project where, you know, like everywhere else in the world, when you bring the glass and bottles and cans back, you get paid for it, right? So charge a fee when you import it, and then pay it back to people when they collect it and bring it in. It's actually creating some employment as well, and it incentivizes public to separate their waste. I think there's a lot of things that have been done worldwide. Composting, you know, this is an island where the soil quality isn't always the best. A lot of people throw foods away. If we can separate those materials, compost it, use it for agriculture, there's many solutions to how we reduced the waste. Again, if you look at the model for Singapore, it's very simple. They use the waste materials, the sludge, the construction materials. They've actually laid it out. They've built an island. They have a plan in terms of how it gets filled in and how that land is reused. It is, for me, most importantly, is the process, that it's an open, transparent process involving all the stakeholders. In the end, the consequences are for everybody. I don't see why we can't have everybody more involved in the solution.
Thank you. Alita?
Thank you again, Marcia. Again, following up on the same question, Minister Gaterson, you're saying that there are, of course, bottlenecks to the current solution that's on the table. Are those bottlenecks workable, or should we now be looking at a viable solution if this is not working, and use Minister Lee's idea of making it more transparent? Because at this point in time, we're talking and the dump's still on fire, basically.
Sorry. Yeah, I know indeed. We are working on a solution still. I mean, in next week, Monday, I believe, we're supposed to meet again with the parties involved, and we will see then on that day how far they came with trying to reach an agreement to the solution.
Thank you, Alita. Stephen, do you have another question?
Prime Minister, you stated that the cruise ships were notified of the situation as it pertains to the fire. How many cruise ships were we expecting today? And if any at all, how many of those diverted to other islands?
I believe the information that we received from the harbor was 3 when we called last night, and those 3 were contacted and informed of the current situation. And as it stated before, it was up to their discretion whether they would berth here in St. Martin or not. I noticed this morning that they are here, so I've noticed some tourists on the island on the 4-wheelers. I hope they enjoy themselves as well, but we are in a specific situation that we're a contained situation at this current moment, and I hope that they enjoy themselves still here on St. Martin.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You have another question,
Yes.
Alita?
Thank you, Marcia. Prime Minister, moving away from the dump finally and onto the preparations for elections. Of course, there's a completely new process now for the delivery of or the collection of voting cards. That process, of course, has had some interruptions due to the fire. Are there plans to, one, increase the number of hours within which someone can pick up their voting cards, and also allowing collection on Saturdays to help people that are working during the day?
Thank you, Alita, for that question. As indicated before, the Central Voting Bureau, Mr. Jason Rogers, we have asked him to come back to the media and give some extra information pertaining to that. It is, as you know, I am a candidate running in the February 26th election, so I would like for the Central Voting Bureau to ensure that the public have that information and kind of extract myself temporarily from that, but ensuring that all the processes still go through. The public need not worry about their voting cards at this time. And I can just restate what I stated before, because that information was given by the Central Bureau. Is the week starting, that was last week, we've lost 2 days, but that days the Civil Registry Department were in the districts, in different substations, allowing citizens the opportunity to pick up their voting cards. That's step 1. The second step was that the voting cards that were not picked up will be distributed by the postal services. The third step is that 8 days before election, those eligible voters who did not get their voting cards as yet because of the first other 2 steps, then they can then go to the Civil Registry Department and they will be issued a duplicate card. This has been done in the past before. The last step, on February 26, Election Day, with proper identification, they can go to their voting bureau, show their ID, the information is there, there's a manual a voting registry, their names will be on it once they are registered, and they will be issued a voting card so that they can vote.
Thank you, Alita. Do you have another
Yeah,
question?
yes,
I will allow one more question before we close off.
Thank you, Marcia. For Minister of Romy and Minister of Health as well, is there any process to monitor the emissions off of the dumps, to understand what exactly we're being faced with, what health concerns can come up later on, and of course having the right medicine and personnel to take care of the outcome.
Yes. The Department of Rami only have equipment to measure the oxygen in the air, and I believe that was measured yesterday by the fire department. I have not received any results as yet from the fire department, but I did ask the fire chief yesterday to brief me like if it's safe or not, and he said he gave me the impression that it is safe, it's not dangerous. But again, this equipment can only measure the oxygen in the air.
I know from previous experiences with the school, there was a school that had issues and they were testing for the air quality, and it is a technical process and a process I don't believe that the ministry has the equipment in-house to do. I think this is a service that we contract out. But I think it's pretty obvious to everybody that the air quality and the smoke is not healthy. I mean, anyone who's in town can see, you know, within a few minutes, many people, their eyes start watering. You do hear people complaining of headaches. So, Alida, I think it's clear that the emissions are unhealthy. In terms of determining the makeup of it, I think that's pretty well known. In other words, that fires from dumps, I think the medical professionals know what kind of chemicals are in it and what kind of health consequences it has. Yeah.
My question, actually, if Marcia, if I can follow up, is more: are we able to deal with, as things go on? Do we have sufficient medical professional? Do we have, of course, they know what's in the fumes.
Sure.
Do we have the medicine required to treat? We have children, we have elderly,
Sure.
we have healthy people that can get sick. Are we equipped to deal with that second part or third part of the fire?
And I believe that, yes, we are prepared to handle the healthcare consequences from it. I haven't had anybody contacting me saying that they're short of any particular medications, but it's something we'll monitor. I thank you for your point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alida, for that final question. Honorable ministers of the council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the Council of Ministers emergency press briefing for today. For video on demand, log on to the official government's website at stmartingov.org. On behalf of the Department of Communication, I am Marcia Gomes-Bopautui.